Call the city council meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining. Here. Germaine.
Here.
Lamore.
Here.
Felder.
Here.
Whitman. Here. Michelangeli. Here. Mayor Clark.
Here, I'd ask we all please rise to the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Strength to manage the challenges ahead and the wisdom to identify opportunities as we strive to serve our community. As we make decisions, grant us the gift of an open mind, the willingness to learn, and the humility to accept the ideas of others. Please help us recognize diversity as a blessing and unity as our strength.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, first item, please.
The first item would be any amendments to the agenda.
Thank you. I'll look to see if there's any amendments from the administration or from council. Councilman Lamore.
Yes, Your Honor. I wish to have, from a previous motion that was passed, item number 2484, I wish to make a motion to have that rescinded by City Council.
Are you asking to place it on the agenda in a particular location?
Council action, please.
Okay, that's one. Let's go 2484. And we'll, looking at the clerk as well as city attorney, that at the end it would be the, behind the ones listed, would that be appropriate?
It would be appropriate, Your Honor.
Procedural question, Your Honor.
Okay, 1 second, we're just writing the numbers down. So is this a motion to have it, you have to have a motion to add it, correct?
Your Honor, yes.
So you're making a motion to add
To the council action.
to the council action the item that you stated. Okay, there is a motion from Councilman Lamore to amend the agenda to add previous council item number 2484. Do we need further information about what that is? And I know what it is, but I think a couple may know, so. Maybe-
I'll just give you
okay.
just a little background. It was July 1st, City Council action approving a change order to approve bump outs or push-ins for 7th Street that included a traffic control order that would convert both West 7th and 8th from one-way traffic to two-way. So that was item 2484.
It's good for clarity for those that may not remember the number, and also for those that are here, but it's also those who may be watching and for council. So with that, again, there's a motion and to be placed on the agenda. Is there a second? Again, there's a motion to place 2484 on the agenda under council action. There's a motion. Is there a second? Seeing no second, the motion dies. Other amendments to the agenda from council? Seeing none. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item are citizen comments not related to an agenda item.
Thank you. There's two opportunities during the meeting to make comments to the citizens' comments. The first is items not related to an agenda item. Is there any comments from those present here this evening that wish to make comments not related to an agenda item? Seeing no comments from those present at this time, of course, comments can be made at the end of the meeting as well. Okay. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is under council action, item 2536, proposed ordinance 19-006, up for its first reading and to set the hearing date.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion that ordinance 19-006, an ordinance to amend Chapter 712 Weeds, Trees, and Refuse, be put on the floor for its first reading and schedule the public hearing for Monday, September 16th, 2019.
Support?
Motion by Councilman Michelangeli, supported by Councilman Felder on item 2536, proposed ordinance 19-006 for the first reading and the public hearing, and the second final reading be on Monday, September 16th. Other comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining? Yes. Germaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Whitman? Yes. Echoangelini? Yes. Mayor Clark?
Yes.
Ordinance stat 19-006, Chapter 712, Weeds, Trees, and Refuse. An ordinance to amend Chapter 712, Weeds, Trees, and Refuse of the Code of the City of Monroe.
Thank you. Next item, please.
The next item is item 2535, consideration to approve lease and funding agreement with Monroe County Opportunity Program.
Mr. Pastou, is there anything as far as introduction? If not, we'll bring it to council's floor.
Yep, thank you, Your Honor. Based on action taken at the last meeting, direction you provided for city administration to put together a lease and funding agreement. In many ways, what I used as the model for this proposed agreement was the one most recently adopted last year with the ALCC nonprofit board. With the lease agreement, just a handful of changes. The term, 3-year agreement, effective October 1st of this year, with 2-year renewal options. Building improvements, nothing significant other than the designated contact person for maintenance and capital projects. It is proposed that MCOP would be responsible for all utility payments, but we did propose to incorporate the $16,000 that went in last year with the ALCC as part of the funding agreement and the appropriation. There was only one small change related to the liability that MCOP would not be responsible for any claims that may have arisen as prior to October 1st. And then there's some report changes, dates for financial, in that they are on an October 1st fiscal year that we would require them to submit an annual audit at least 6 months thereafter, consistent with state and then with reports that they would provide regular quarterly reports to the manager's office, but semi-annual present to the city council with that. Related to the funding agreement, again, very consistent with the term. I think the other item is that we've added were the creation of an advisory board, communications ongoing with activities taking place there, and then a kind of a general phrase that with Labor Park that we would come back and negotiate further regarding the oversight and programming associated with that at the future time. So based on that, that's the structure of both the leasing and funding agreement with MCOP.
Just a quick comment from me, and I'll see if there's other comments from council as it comes forward, but I appreciate the fact sheet and the information. Not only did it have the previous agreement and lined out, I mean, sometimes it's easy to read, but the lease agreement and the funding agreement with the bullets of what was different was easy follow, plus then it makes it an easy read as well. So I thought that was presented well, so just thanks for that. With that, unless there's other comments, this is under council action for consideration.
Your Honor, I'll move to approve the lease and funding agreement with MCOP to operate the ALCC effective October 1st, 2019.
Support.
It's a motion by Councilman Michelangelo, supported by Councilwoman Whitman. Item 2535, approve the lease and funding agreement with the Monroe County Opportunity Program, MCOP. Other comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining?
No.
Germaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Whitman?
Yes.
Echoangelini?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Clerk, next item, please.
Item 2538, authorization to request conveyance of former Lazyboy headquarters site to the city of Monroe.
Mr. Pastou, is there some preliminary information or review?
What we've talked about, we've looked at numerous alternatives related to the redevelopment of the site, and we're at a point where city administration feels that maybe the best approach is for us to request from Lazyboy that they convey the property to us for $1. We've been working with prospective developer for the site, as well as getting a good handle related to the asbestos abatement and environmental remediation, and we think that the best approach would be to request council for us to make that request from Lazyboy. The action we'd be requesting is authorizing the manager to request conveyance of the property for $1. Upon Lazyboy agreeing with that, authorize the city attorney to prepare documents necessary for the conveyance. And then third, authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the necessary documents on approval of the city attorney and city manager. We've had some discussions with that, and we think we're comfortable with taking this approach, and all the parties would be supportive of this action.
Very good. See if there's Councilman Michelangelo, comment?
Comment, Your Honor. First, I'll make the motion to approve the following actions to get this on the floor. First, authorize the city manager to request conveyance of the former Lazyboy headquarter property for $1. Number two, upon Lazyboy agreeing to convey the property, authorize the city attorney to prepare the necessary documents to accept conveyance. And then three, authorize mayor and clerk, treasurer to sign the necessary documents upon approval of the city attorney and city manager.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Michelangelo, supported by Councilman Lamore on item 2538, authorization to request conveyance of the former Lazyboy headquarters site to the city of Monroe. Councilman Michelangelo, you had a comment?
I have a comment, Your Honor. I just want to emphasize this to the community. We've been criticized sometimes that we spend money on studies. However, the Lazyboy headquarters site is an example of dollars well spent. It was at the city's initiative that we did a study to take a look at what the potential build-out or repurposing and transformation of that property could be. Up until the point where Lazyboy moved into its new headquarters, it has tried for several years to sell the property. It is rather large, it's cumbersome, it's functionally obsolete, and it's not really producing a lot in taxable value based on its location on North Telegraph Road, which gets about 32,000 cars a day. So it was the city's initiative looking at this project that really has kind of brought interest by a development company to invest on the property. And at the same time, I have to compliment the administration on being proactive and working with Frenchtown Charter Township on the exchange of property. So all of the Frenchtown, or all of the Lazyboy property is under the jurisdiction of the city. And then what we've done is we've turned over jurisdiction of the Quality Inn on North Dixie, which is adjacent to Frenchtown Charter Township. So it was a partnership between two units of government, again, that was facilitated out of the strategy in the plan that was executed or approved by the city council. So I want to compliment the city administration on putting all of this together. This is no easy task in terms of all the various steps that had been executed and all the various agreements that have to been put in place to make a project like this happen. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Other comments this time? If not, there is a motion and a second. See nothing further. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Binding? Yes. Germaine? Yes. Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Whitman? Yes. Michelangelo?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is under the consent agenda, and item B, approval of payments to vendors. The amount should read $2,323,828.45. 2323828.45.
Thank you. Are there any items on the consent agenda that council wishes to pull for further discussion? Any items on the consent agenda from council? Councilman Moore?
Yes, Your Honor. If I could pull item number 2531, please.
Very good. Other items from council? Are there any items on the consent agenda those present here this evening wish to have pulled for further discussion? Any items, remaining two items on the consent agenda? Seeing none?
Your Honor,
Oh, Councilman Felder, I'm sorry.
I was going to make a motion.
Oh, go ahead. We're all good. Go ahead, sir.
I motion that all items on the consent agenda not pulled for further discussion be accepted, placed on file, and the recommendations carried out.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Felder, supported by Councilman Lamore, that the items not pulled for further discussion on the consent agenda be accepted, placed on file, and actions carried out. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Binding? Yes. Germaine? Yes. Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Whitman? Yes. Michelangelo?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Councilman Moore?
Yes, regarding item number 2531, if I could just ask the city manager just for a little bit more information on that, just so our public knows.
Oh, this item is, it's a standard MDOT agreement for trunk line maintenance. With that, it just covers the general terms and conditions. We are reimbursed for the work that is performed on essentially Monroe, M125, but it is limited to that. Just so everybody understands, we only deal with North and South Monroe from a maintenance standpoint. But it's just a standard 5-year contract that we have with MDOT, as other jurisdictions do as well.
Thank you.
Okay, good. That's perfect. Other questions or comments? Councilman Michelangelo?
I think it should be noted because winter's coming up soon, that I think residents need to be aware that the County Road Commission is no longer going to be providing snow removal on state or federal trunk lines. It's going to be through a private vendor, and the private vendor is going to be responsible for I-75 and Telegraph Road.
That is correct.
So-
That's my understanding.
Yeah, so the city of Monroe is not doing snow removal on 75 or Telegraph. That's going to be done through a private vendor.
So there was a motion and a second, discussion.
Can you make a motion?
You need a motion, please.
Oh, I'll
Thank you.
make the motion then. Your Honor, I motion that we carry out item number 2531 and all of its actions and have the clerk record all of its actions.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Lamore, supported by Councilwoman Germania. Item 2531, the MDOT trunk line maintenance contract 2019 to 2024 be accepted. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Binding?
Yes.
Mr. Manning?
Yes.
Lemore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Whitman?
Yes.
Equangeli?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes.
We
Please.
have no further items this evening, Your Honor.
Council comments, it is September, so Councilwoman Vining.
No comment, Your Honor.
Okay. Councilwoman Germani.
Thank you, Patrick, for paving Mayfall Boulevard. It's wonderful, yes. But with that said, Maywood had 17 trees cut down. And I just want to make sure that when we plant trees in the future in Maywood to replace the trees that were cut down, that we perhaps get a thicker trunk line and something that would be complementary to the streetscape of that street. Please.
We've had the discussion, one, there's, I think, more trees going in than came down, but also that we're going with looking at a 3-inch or caliper tree, which is a little bigger than what we normally do. I know there's a couple of little challenges that may go with some utility locations and that type of thing, but certainly the Department of Public Services will take that into consideration. So
Will that happen in the spring,
I think we're doing this fall.
this fall?
Yeah, we're still
already?
on to do it this fall, right? Yeah, that, absolutely. That's the best time to, unless, if I was surprised, it's usually try and get these done in the fall, which is the best time for planting.
Okay. Maywood's a site.
Yes.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Right.
Good luck.
A question for the manager. Are we gonna tag the trees?
Well, I think that, we've done that before where we've had our arborists go out and look at doing that, so
So he'll go out and tag the trees. We won't just accept them off the lot.
take a look at them.
So with our
Correct.
forestry division, as
What?
city knows, our forestry division, the idea is that we make sure that they're involved as we talk about planting, removing, and taking care of trees. So we'll see what we get back from administration. Councilman Moore.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Just wanted to ask a couple of questions regarding the property owned by Complete Packaging currently, which is the old Mako site.
Yeah.
Just wanted to see if we're getting any headway on getting that property moving or doing something with it.
There has, I think earlier this year had renewed an option that we had with it a couple of years ago. They had offered to sell it to us for $1, and given its environmental condition, we said, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. But we will take an option to try and market it, because anything that happens there is going to be a brownfield project, so which means going to come through the city anyway. So at this point, there isn't anything, there's no hot iron in the fire with that property at this time, though.
Okay, thank you on that. I also know that there's some issues with the garbage pickup at the condos on front. Have we thought any more about that?
Yes, but there's no resolution to it, other than I think we're getting one issue with our carrier or contractor waste management resolved, with the understanding that we'll come back and look at a couple other service areas that we have to contemplate, so.
Thank you on that. And as far as the 7th Street action was, which we were talking about earlier, about me asking to have that previous action rescinded, I guess it was just a little bit of the cart before the horse on that one. And that was a little bit disappointing on my part, not doing a little bit more research and looking into it a little bit harder for the residents. So I apologize on my part, but I wish to let them know that I'm doing the best I could to try to get that action rescinded. Unfortunately, I failed in that, and I apologize for that. But what's disappointing, I think, to them more than anything else was that we really didn't have that real good notification to them as to actually what was going on there. And I think had they known a little bit more prior to our action, there would have been less problems with that. And I think that they probably would have gone with what the decision was, with what we decided to do back in July. But because we didn't approach them first, I think they may have been a little disenfranchised, a little disappointed with us because we didn't follow their actions first. So that to me was a little bit disappointing. But we'll do our best to look into that situation. I know that we've promised to watch over that street for the next year and reanalyze and come back to another conclusion to see exactly what has happened after we do turn it to a two-way street. So at this time point, that's the best we're going to be able to do, and I'm going to go with it and hope for the best that it was the right action, and we'll see from what happens over the year. And that's it, Your Honor.
Thanks. Councilman Felder.
Thank you, Your Honor. I was very happy to see the new weed ordinance be put up for its first reading. I've been doing my best to nurse this through the legislative process. There's a number of documents and entities that I think inform and embody the spirit of the proposal, which have also been involved in the process of forming and commenting and informing what goes into it and why it's there, such as the UN Earth Charter, the IHM, the River Raisin Institute, the Monroe County Drain Commissioner, the Resilience Monroe Plan that the city has, the Monroe County Drain Commissioner Citizens Guide, the Citizens Field Guide for the City of Monroe, the Fresh Opportunity Green Map, the Guardian Program, and the Earth Day and Arbor Day proclamations. It is widely accepted within these documents and explicitly called out by our own Drain Commission under, for the county, that rain gardens be implemented as a use of water retention and to reduce nutrient runoff. I hope that this will allow some more of that to take place within the city. I think it eases up some of the regulatory burden on the residents themselves, and I think it focuses in our priorities specifically on our high priority issues like invasive species, and puts us in line with state and federal guidelines and removes the burden from the city itself in defining these items. So I was just happy to see that. It's been a process. I'm happy to see where we are now. I think that's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
Councilwoman Whitman.
Yes, Your Honor. Yesterday, I went to several homes on Cass and Harrison, and I I met with several of the people that live there, and I wanted to know what was their input. I know that we had people that had come here and spoke, but I wanted to meet some of the people face to face and not it be such a structured environment. So I had some really good discussions with many of them, and almost everyone that I talked to had a sign in their yard, even though they said they are not the one that purchased the sign, that a gentleman had come and asked if he could put a sign in their yard, and because they didn't want the the two-way, they agreed to have the sign. But, and it's what Brian had said about the people being upset. They're mostly upset because of the way that it was handled. You know, they felt that the city was not listening to them, and that one gentleman told me that the study was not any good because it didn't have the neighbors' input. So some of their main concerns were the parking and the roads being too narrow. Their children, you know, play in the streets, and they're used to only looking one way before they cross the street. But they did say that next time they hope that if there's going to be a special meeting, they ask of the city that they get at least a 2-week notice. And that's because most of the women that I had spoke to were single parents who needed, you know, at least a 2-week time to be able to get a babysitter and get a day off from work to be able to come and attend the meeting, which they wanted to, but they weren't able to come here or attend the meeting that had been scheduled. So I'm making a note here of that now, so that hopefully we can handle the next situation better than what we did this one. I don't like it that my name is on some of those signs, but it's my precinct, and I have to accept that. So one of the reasons that I went around yesterday was to make sure that people had my business card and they know that I represent them. But even more than that, it was because I don't want people to think that I am the person on that sign. You know, I campaigned and I became a member of council because I care about my community. And if I make mistakes, then I want you to come to me, and I would rather you did that than put my name on a sign, you know. But there were also people that were very happy about the two-way. They want it to go two-way so they can get to Kroger's, they can get to their job, they can travel and do things without having to go in a big circle to be able to get off their block. Some of the other things is that most of the people didn't have an opinion. One gentleman said, just do it and people would get used to it. You know, they just didn't have an opinion on it. It had been that, their opinion was that it had been that way for so long that people just don't like change. And as far as he was concerned, he didn't want it. But, you know, he couldn't really think of a good reason not to have it. So hopefully this 1 year that we'll be able to come up with a good solution. Hopefully it works out to where that people do like it. I mean, there's certain things I like about my street and things I don't like about my street. But the main thing I think is that the city should take into consideration giving the residents more time so that they can come to the meetings and be heard. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Michelangelo.
I have two things, Your Honor. First, it'll probably be in the newspaper, I think, and I think there maybe was a press release, but on Monday, September 16th at 4:00 is the one of several open houses for the new fire station #1 over on East 3rd Street. And at 6:00 is going to be the symbolic ribbon cutting for the building. So I would encourage those that would like to come to see the new facility. I believe that the fire department is going to hold an open house in October. They traditionally hold one for Fire Safety Week, and they plan on having another open house for the community, I believe on a Saturday, where more people can show up. This is going to be on a Monday, the ribbon cutting before a city council meeting. The other issue, I think I sent an email around a couple of the administration, is regarding the 5G wireless ordinance. If we're going to have something available soon, based on the legislation that was adopted and signed by Governor Snyder, that will allow the wireless companies to use our right-of-ways for their wireless system. It has a number of time-sensitive timeframes in it, as well as some special conditions for downtowns and historic districts. but I think we need to get better educated on it. If not, also have an ordinance to help regulate it. What limited regulation we can apply, because they've taken most of our authority away as a local unit of government. So those are the two issues I had, Your Honor.
Thank you. I have a couple items. As I heard a few, it made me remind me of a couple others that I know that I've spoken with the city manager on, but also I think it's important council know where we're at on those things. First was, I'll start with just follow up with Councilman Michelangelo regarding the fire station open house. You know, the station obviously was needed in regards to the previous facility, which was not functioning to the capacity it could be for not only the service but also the employees. But also was this, as we went through that process of getting support from the community on the millage, one of the items that I hope people will come down and see is the opportunity that it presents regarding the community space and the community room and opportunities that presents as well. I think it goes hand in hand about opening up facilities and being the public's opportunity to utilize as well. So please, on the date set on September 16th at 4 p.m., come down to the open house to stay for the opening ceremony and ribbon cutting at 6. Tonight on the agenda was a discussion. I know that Councilman Michelangelo spoke at the time. I wanted to save some to the end here regarding the conveyance of the former Lazyboy property, the city of Monroe. I also want to thank city staff and Mark Cochran for his great work in getting us through this long process of well over a year and a half. And City Attorney Matt Buds, because it's not done until the contracts get done either. So, and as we look forward, it comes back to us in the future. I know there's some final details there. Mr. Pastu, our city manager, clearly with his expertise and experience in really bringing that forward. There's so many that was involved, as Councilman Michelangelo said. The Lazyboy, they didn't have to listen to us. They could have just made decisions. But I really commend having a good partner in a business in the CEO, Kurt Darrow, for listening to us when we went over there and made the first proposal. And then the developer for recognizing the value what this proposal and project is, and investing in not only having the revenues, but also having the expertise to do that. The Frenchtown Township item, as we worked through that as was said, was not an easy task, but got through that as well to really make it so the city has the ability to develop property in a significant amount for our city when you look overall to have that much land mass. And so it's been a partnership along the way. Different people have been involved at one point, but from the city, Lazyboy, and the developer, I'm very optimistic that we'll be seeing some change there quickly here through the winter. I know there was a comment made about some of the road funding and projects, and there is inconvenience. I think that's recognized, and I know some have talked to me as well. But I think about last year, and one of the projects that didn't get done in the time frame we wanted it wasn't necessarily the fault of the city. And there was some items in which the work couldn't be done because there weren't workers to do it. And it's not about whether it's right or wrong when somebody decides they can't move forward on the project. But the reality was when it came time to come back, the state ordered all the paving workers to do the state projects. Therefore, that caused the reason why Maple did not get done last year. And of course, if you watch the news over the last couple of weeks, it's the same position again this year. Some of the workers are not producing and going to do that because there's I'm not saying the strife and the problems aren't legitimate, but the item is hopefully it'll be resolved and not impact us because we have 3 significant projects that are going on that need to get done this year, and paving will have to be done on those as well. So we do keep watching that, and the administration, I said, does. A couple items, and Councilman Michelangelo made me think about that because we talk about ordinances and revisiting that. I know that the council took action months ago when we talked about with the passage and some ordinance regarding the recreational marijuana and how we address that as a community, as a city, needs and zoning. And I know Mr. Pastu and the city attorney are looking at now that the rules have been, I'll say promulgated or available, and the dates moved up to where it's now November 1st. And the question is, and I think that we'll try to get a response back to the council so we all have awareness, and the residents and those listening, that is it something that requires a difference in realms of an ordinance in relation after the rules? So is it something we need to reaffirm, something council needs to have further discussion on, or if we're set in which we are, where we currently stand on that as the council action? So I'm just not looking for a response tonight, but I know that we've talked, and I think the council should be aware of how those dates have changed, and we will have to account for that as well. Last thing I had, and I know that it's been a couple months now since we had the presentation on the public safety assessment. I know that there were some dates that were sent to council on that as far as some possibilities of some context. I know Mr. Pastu is making some follow-ups with Guillermo and Fitch Associates to make sure that we see if we meet those dates. So we have that contact back as was designed individually with council, but then also coming back publicly. So I just want to know that that's still in the process, and it's something we're trying to get information back to the council as well as our dialogue. I think that's all I have, and again, my thanks to the administration and the staff for the great work done on the where we're at with the conveyance of the property of the former Lazyboy site. Clerk Treasurer Lavoy.
I wanted to thank everyone who put in time and effort to organize the Labor Day festival downtown and the parade. It was a nice event, and people seemed to be having a good time. So just wanted to make mention of that. Other than that, I have no comments.
Thank you. Mr. Pastu.
Thank you, Your Honor. I want to echo again, certainly Mark Cochran's involvement with the Lazyboy, particularly the environmental analysis that went into the tireless hours. Jeff Green for his engagement with the sub-area plan, and certainly Matt Buds for a lot of the work that went into the 425. We're looking at the development agreement and the conveyance agreement and a lot of the details associated with the brownfield. So great team to work with, and so I think pleased to be a part of that. The other thing I wanted to mention, I gave you in the update, Mr. Lewis and I talked about it late this afternoon. We're going to put the Labor Park project back out to bid probably late this week. He's had a couple of contractors that he has worked with, and there's interest in it. They roughly know what we're looking for from a pricing standpoint. And so we'll put that back out. I think the bid opening, we were talking September 30th, and potentially having this in front of the city council if the pricing is appropriate for the October 7th meeting. So we're going to move forward with that. I'm going to have Matt talk a little bit about a couple of the items that came up, and then I've got one last item afterwards. So.
Your Honor and Counsel, so on the recreational marijuana issue, my view is that we have a existing ordinance that is in place and properly adopted. I think given the promulgation of the rules, my recommendation is going to be that we have the item back for action, that council can again look at that item, and if in fact the idea would be to reaffirm that position, I think a resolution basically stating to that effect so that that action is out there reaffirming the position of the council in support of the existing ordinance. I think that would be an appropriate action, and I'm going to work with the city manager to put that proposal together. As far as the small cell, one reminder of an action that the council took back in late 2018 was to add a chapter 652 to the ordinances for distributed antenna systems and small cell networks that required a franchise agreement that had many of the provisions that would require, to the maximum extent we can, things like co-location, design, things like that. We'll take a look at that in connection with whether that should be expanded or whether we're sufficient on that front. But just a reminder that that action was taken and that we'll evaluate whether we should make any changes to that ordinance as well.
Last item, Your Honor. I just, it's, sadness that I mentioned the passing of a wonderful individual and consultant that we worked with these past 2 years, Jim Vanderveen. Jim was employed by Land Matters of Grand Rapids and represented the city with land acquisition process for the River Raisin Battlefield National Park. Late last week, Jim passed away with a rare form of cancer after being diagnosed just only earlier this summer. As I've mentioned to many in the past, this land assembly project is the most complicated one I've ever professionally been involved with. When I came on board 3 years ago, The DNR land acquisition grant for this project was viewed by residents in the affected area with uncertainty, some doubt, suspicion, and even derision. With Jim's extensive professional knowledge of federal land acquisition and relocation regulations, along with his human touch, the city has acquired 17 parcels with more in the works. Jim gave this program credibility in that property owners were treated fairly and with dignity. Commitments he made on behalf of the city were honored. It is to the point now that additional property owners now wish to be part of the program based on Jim's credibility in establishing this program with our property owners. I can't tell you we could have found a better ambassador for us in this project. And again, I can't underscore his human touch in making this program a success. It's not easy to tell a homeowner that his appraisal is lower than what was expected. It's not easy assisting an understandably emotional senior in acquiring a home that she has lived in all her life, or dealing with family or tenant relocations. Through it all, Jim was able to resolve whatever challenge was presented with patience, understanding, and dignity. At this point, we can only express our gratitude to his family, his friends, and work associates for the wonderful contribution he made to our city, and to extend our condolences for their loss. He was a terrific individual that will be missed, and certainly someone I think had a very major impact on the project and our community. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thanks, Vince. Great comments from Mr. Van Reen and his family, and of course, Land Matters. Thank you. This time, any comments from those present here this evening? Any comments? Yes, please come forward. Name, address. Thank you.
Tonight is that after listening to the opening tonight before you did the Pledge of Allegiance, you said that you would like strength and an open mind to listen to the citizens. Is that what it said? I'm not exactly sure, but it said something like that. We came here almost over a year ago and told you guys that we did our own personal survey. Mrs. Whitman, I didn't go to just a couple houses. I went to every house on Cass Street, every single house. And I did a petition, and I gave you guys a copy of that petition. 80-some% of the people were against the two-way street. Less than 30% of those people have driveways, concerned about their safety. They do not want this. Do you see the signs? It's not just about your name being on the sign, and it's hard for me to believe that those people are just ignorant and don't know why those signs are in their yard, or naive, or bullied by their neighbors. They know why those signs are there, and they know what they mean. And I'm just disappointed that our voices aren't being heard. And I feel like you should be representing the people. This is not just closed quarters and you make any decision you want. How much more do we have to give you? A petition? Last night, that street was blocked off for over 40 minutes with 4 cop cars. I have video. You've never asked me for the video, but I've told you I have video proving how many times Cass Street has been blocked off because of police, fire, ambulance, all of these things. It's a safety hazard. Is there anything that we can do to open your minds and your ears up to the citizens of that community right there? I'm just disappointed that this is still continuing to go on. And none of you will be affected by it because you don't live over there. That's all I have.
Thank you, Tammy. Other comments from those present here this evening? Yes.
Good evening, Stephanie Zorn-Kasperzak. I'm the Executive Director of MCOP 1140 South Telegraph in Monroe. I just wanted to take a very brief minute and update you after our meeting 2 weeks ago, just to let you know how we're moving forward as it relates to the Arthur Lesau Community Center. Within the week of our meeting, we had developed a transition plan. Our transition plan included 4 key areas. The first, staffing; the second, funding and budgeting; the second, the third, creating an advisory council; and finally, marketing and public relations. Within the first week, we met with the Arthur Lesau Community Center Board, as well as the ALCC staff, to present to them a timeline. We wanted to make sure that first and foremost, the staff knew what was going on, and knew what to expect as we moved forward. So that was really important to us. And I wanted to let you know that we were met with a very productive board and a very positive board and staff. And so it really set the tone for us to move forward in a very positive fashion. Internally, we're working on readjusting our organizational structure and developing our position descriptions. And our hope is by next week, we will be able to put those positions up for posting so staff can apply. So I wanted to let you know that. A couple of exciting fronts. We have submitted an application to the Commission on Aging Board for the remaining quarter of 2019 for funding. We also, 2 days after our meeting here on the 19th, received an invitation from the Community Foundation for Southeastern Michigan, inviting us to apply for a grant for the center. So we're going to be taking them up on that and doing that this month as well. We've talked on several occasions about an advisory council. I'm really, really glad to say that within a few days, we got so many positive comments that we probably have half of our advisory council populated. And that's really exciting because there is such great passion for people in the neighborhood, in the community who want to be involved with us moving forward. So I just wanted to take a minute and let you know kind of the direction that we're heading. We really appreciate the confidence of City Council in approving the lease and funding agreement tonight. We'll be taking that to our Board of Directors as well. But I also want to invite any of you, if you hear comments, suggestions, if you want to be involved in what we're doing, please call me directly because this is a really exciting project for us and we want as many people to be involved moving forward. So thank you.
Other comments from those present here this evening? Yes, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Mary Gunter. I live at 721 Cass Street. And I just want to say that I just totally agree with Tammy. Can I ask a question? Am I able to do that?
You can, but this is about comments from the public. It's not necessarily
Well,
a dialogue or debate, but go ahead.
It's kind of something I don't understand. Has it already been decided, the Cass Street and all that? Changing them to two ways?
I'll let Mr. Pastu give the status of where we're at regarding administration's review and presentation here.
There has not been a traffic control order presented back to the city council to make that, take that action at this point in time. When we looked at 7th and 8th, we thought that was probably best to start with looking at the effect of that before we came back. This is city staff, in our issue. And, as I've talked about before, when we had this conversation last fall, we would give you advance notice when the city council would be contemplating that but first, we've got to come to a determination that we're ready to move forward with it as well, so.
Okay, thank you. And I have one other comment. I don't believe we should block off Cass Street. I don't see blocking off a entrance to a business when Monroe is losing so many businesses. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Other comments from those present here this evening? Name and address, please.
My name's Gloria Rafco, 127 Borges. I didn't come here planning to talk, but after listening to Stephanie, I just want to say I'm on the board down there, and she came in, it could have been a hostile environment, but she just came in very professional. Everybody gave their opinion of what could be put forth to make it better down there, and it was a very productive meeting, and that was a good choice. She did a good job. Thank you.
Other comments from those present here this evening?
Your Honor.
Seeing no other comments.
I move that we go into closed session to discuss the matters of pending litigation involving the following parties. Number one, Stacy Hall. Number two, a number of plaintiffs having filed similar lawsuits, specifically Mix Harms, Nichols, Blanksley, Cook, Helm, Clark, and Johnson, Mills, Berry, Neeram, Johnson, Drummonds, Smallwood, Zaricki, Smith, Smith Jr. Number three, Pompey, and number 414 East First LLC.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Eichelangelo, supported by Councilman Lamore. We go into closed executive session to discuss pending litigation updates as stated. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Binding? Yes. Jermaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Whitman?
Yes.
Michael Angeli? Mayor Clark?
Yes.